today's video, I'm doing something a little different. I'm actually on vacation right now, visiting some family. I did not have the forethought to make a sewing video for this time period, so instead I thought I would do a sewing room tour. Hopefully you find that interesting. I usually find looking at people's sewing spaces to be very interesting in my opinion, because I like to see how they organize stuff. Sometimes I'll get inspired and think, wow, that is a great idea, I should implement that. Oftentimes I don't, but it's a thought that counts. And I'll give you a little history about my space here. I actually live in a shared apartment, so even though I have a pretty big dining room with a pretty big dining room table and a lot of space out in the common area, it is common area, so I don't actually get to sew out there, because when I sew I kind of spread things out and it's just a lot of chaos because people are walking in and out, and it's an open concept, which I'm not a big fan of open concepts because you're in everyone's business. Which means my sewing space is actually my bedroom, and I just divided it the best I could to have an individual sewing space and an individual sleeping quarter. I would love to have a door to shut on my sewing space when I'm done, but I don't. And I've lived like this for several years, so I'm pretty used to it. The only annoying thing I would say is that with the cats, they always get into my stuff, so I actually have to put things away at the end of the day, every day, which is a little frustrating. I would love to be able to just shut the door and not have to worry about it and just come back to a project that's ready for me to begin where I left off, but that's not the case. It is what it is. Anyway, I'm ready to get started, so let's begin. And the best place to begin is right here in my POV, so come here. Alright, my apologies if this is dark and or shaky. I am not used to holding the camera myself, but this is the background of all of my scenes. This little table here is what I use to stand my very janky looking tripod on, and it also houses my sewing machine. This is my new one that I bought from my friend. She let me borrow it and I really liked it more so than the one I am using, so I bought it from her. I just use my craft light as a little extra, what is that, movie magic light. And let me just move this back to where it's supposed to be and then we'll get started. Alright, so I just put everything back to where it would normally be. Everything's put away. This here is my sewing room. This is where I do a lot of my filming, and I also obviously do a lot of filming over here. And what I usually hide is this big old mess right here. This is my craft bookcase. It has all of my craft supplies in it, and a plant that I'm trying to heal after Sir Paul ate a lot of the tips off. This is my blue buttons. All of my buttons are just randomly placed in different jars and put places so they look pretty and aesthetic. This does not have anything in it, neither does this. My friend made this for me. It is a whiskey bottle lamp. And this is my really bad iron that needs to be replaced. I like it because it has this retractable cord in it, but it is old and needs to be replaced. This is where I keep my folded up ironing board. So let me explain my organization skills to you, which are none. Down here is a quilting project I'm working on. Don't look at that because it's supposed to be a video. This is my baubles. When I'm bored but I want to do something crafty, I make these little baubles with various buttons and little broken jewelry. Then up here is my iron and interfacing. This just has some scrap material. This has Christmas baubles for when I make wreaths. This one has Halloween baubles when I make Halloween wreaths. This also has a bunch of remnant fabric in it, mostly like small pieces. These are my pocket patterns. That's a hammer. These are little scribblings for a novel that I want to write someday. These are my broken jewelry and just miscellaneous jewelry pieces that I make my baubles out of, or I use when I'm feeling in the mood for making jewelry. That is also a project, don't look at it. Underneath is where I keep my hot glue gun and all my glue sticks. This here also has some more beading stuff in it. This is my sew-in interfacing. Underneath is some other embroidery patterns that I want to check out. Here are some of my vintage patterns that I want to work on. They're some of my new ones or the ones that I've already finished. And here are some more Christmas supplies for making wreaths. These are actually things I inherited after my grandmother died. They are vintage pinking scissors that I have not used yet. And then this is a scissor pouch. I don't think she ever used them. These are my ironing supplies. What is that? That's my ham. Underneath is my cloths that I use to protect my fabric before I iron on them because my iron sucks. And this is just random bits and bobs. And then of course I have my art wall, which is looking very scarce, but I have my other art wall, which is also pretty scarce and mostly hidden. And then over here is my hanky rack. These are all vintage hankies that were my grandmother's that I inherited when she died. I just painted a spoon rack and put her hankies on it because I like to have them on display. This is my sewing table. I've had this table, gosh, probably 15 years now. It's from IKEA. I really like it because I was looking for a folding table, but I don't like how flimsy most folding tables are. I wanted something that was foldable and made of wood. And so this is how I ended up with this. I also really like that it has drawers in it. So the top drawer is just my basic sewing needs. It's got my little clipping scissors, it has needles, it has all my threads. The middle one is for all of my electronic gadgets, so any of my power chargers. My mic I put in here when I'm done filming, and so is my camera put in here because I don't want the cats knocking it over. And then this bottom one is filled with plastic bags that I use to keep everything together. It also has the same thing on the other side, which I don't really use that often. It's usually facing a wall. And then over here, this hot mess. So this is my mannequin. I like to dress her up sometimes. This is one of many that I have. I actually collect vintage mannequins. This is the only one that has a stand that is not broken. So she is the one that is in my sewing room. My other ones are actually in storage and are waiting to be on display. And so this thing here, I actually just got this. I love it. My neighbor was putting it out on the curb. They didn't want it anymore, so I took it in, cleaned it up, and it does spin. But I learned really quickly with cats that that's not a good idea because on the other side is a full cork wall, and they like to scratch the cork, so I moved it to face the door, and then I put my table easel right here so they can't scratch at it anymore. On the back side is hooks that I use to hang my broken light. This is draft paper. I got 2 of them at an auction for $75 total. This cubby here is entirely empty because this was where I was hoping my cats would want to lay because it's on the ground. I assumed they would want to lay here. This is where my cats actually lay, so all this fabric is mostly just their bedding now. This here is fabric that I have projects in mind for. This one is actually a work in progress that I'm working on. This is all remnant material that I don't care too much about or I've already used, so I'm okay using it for mock-up material. This here is also stuff that I have projects for. You might recognize this one. I am filming this in between that project. And then up here is where I keep all of my work in progress pieces. that I am currently working on or plan to be working on soon, so there are a lot of mock-ups. I keep them up here because the cats don't get up there. And this is my sewing reef. I absolutely love it. And in case you're wondering, this door, it actually leads out to the outside. It is my entry door. However, during the last hurricane, we sealed it off so no water would get in. And I've just been using the common door. Alright, and then we have this bookcase here that divides the room as well. So up here is all of my grommets, my snaps, and my button making supplies. This one here is all my embroidery supplies, and this one is my zippers. And these are my pothos. I have one in a pot with dirt, and I have all the clippings from when my cats would chew on my big pothos out in the living room. All the clippings go in that bowl, and they're doing pretty good. This was my first project that I ever did for embroidery. I'd never done embroidery before, and I really wanted to try it, and I thought it was delightful AF. These are my sorted buttons and threads. I did try at some point to put them in color coordination, but it didn't work out. So, and I do try with these buttons to do color organization. This one is brown, this one's black, that one's white. These ones are pinks, purples, and neutrals. And the one in the back is reds. I have various pin cushions. This one I got at a thrift store, I believe. This one I made to go in a milk glass scissor holder, but that broke. My cats pushed it off while I was sewing. It's supposed to look like this, which I got at a flea market. Thought it was a great idea, so when I found a bigger one of these bowls, I made that to go into it, but then my cats knocked it off, and made me very sad. These are furry bones. I got these at the beach. It used to be before I moved to the beach that anytime I would visit with my family, we always visited the shop that sold furry bones, and we'd buy one as a memento of our time there. So now that we live at the beach, we obviously don't buy them as much, so whenever we go traveling and we find a furry bone shop, we will buy a furry bone. My last furry bone that I bought was this cute little seal. I bought it at a little coastal town in central Florida, and it goes really well with all of my beach-themed ones, which obviously, because we would get them at the beach, is why we have a beach-themed one. This was something I inherited recently. Same with that. These are some shells that I picked up at beaches that I went to. This has all of my scissors in it. It didn't originally have this, it just was the wire, but there's nothing here stopping it from coming out, so I just sewed this in and glued it down at the bottom so the scissors wouldn't come out. These are all my little nippers and whatever these are little gauges, little measuring things. This is something new I just bought. It's a darning mushroom. This is a painting my great-grandmother painted. This box is a box of bias tape. This here is a box of future projects, so it's got patterns and bias tapes and thread. Oftentimes I will get patterns that I want to do projects with and then immediately forget about them. So I put all the patterns I want in here with a little sticky note saying which fabric I'm going to use and which view I'm going to do. And then this here is a PDF pattern that I printed out recently and taped together. I have yet to test it out. This is my serger. I protect my serger with a bit of cloth. It doesn't really need protecting when it's on the shelf, but it needs protecting when I'm using it, having it on the table to work on it, because Sir Paul will eat the threads. Same with this. All of my machines have to be covered because Paul will gnaw on the thread and break this apart. He loves to eat thread. In here is the sewing machine that I do not like. This here is all my sketchbooks for when I draw out designs. That's some more little ramblings for the book I want to write. This is my pen drawer. This one here has all of my pens in it as well. This one has all my pencils in it. And this one has miscellaneous sewing stuff. That is my tape holder. Those are my button sheets. that is a bunch of miscellaneous buttons that I need to organize. Those are all my petals. That is a bottle of rosé I bought for my mom for her birthday. Don't tell her. And then over here is my sleeping space. And there is Miss Pepper. Miss Pepper pretty much spends her whole time in my bedroom because she doesn't really like other cats or people. Whereas the other cats are free to roam the house as much as they please. Pepper is technically free to roam the house, but she just doesn't like to. Yeah. And I don't really have much in the way of sewing paraphernalia here, except for this crochet socket that I bought at a craft market. Love it. And then this is all of my get ready stuff and my tablet. This is just my dresser. This has all of my clothes. I hang these up so they're easy to find. I have to put this one up here because Pepper will bap at it when it's hanging down. That is my dye bin. It's where I dye all of my fabrics, and back here is where I keep all of my cutting boards. And this is here where I try on all of my projects. Hello! And that is pretty much it for my sewing space. It's pretty, you know, this is my bed, this is my sewing space. I want to put like a really decorative wallpaper on the back of this, but for the most part, I am really happy with this setup. I'm sure what you're noticing though about this is that there is not a whole lot of storage, and you would be correct. I actually don't store my fabric in this room. I have a storage unit where I put everything, and those hold my big totes of fabrics and holds all of my patterns when I'm not using them. I also have a work in projects bin under the bed as well for when I feel like finishing those projects someday. Alright, there you have it. This is my sewing space. It's not much, but it works for me. I need my space to be somewhat organized. I'm sure I need to use organization with quotations because this might not be very organized for some people, but it's organized for me, and it is that right balance of enough clutter for me to feel inspired, but not too much clutter for me to feel drained and feel overwhelmed with choices. If I have too many choices on hand, I get kind of overwhelmed with what I want to do, and this just helps keep that to a minimum. I may or may not have another video for you. If I don't get it done before I go on vacation, I probably won't have time to finish it between the time I get back and the time that posting is supposed to go on. But if that's the case, I will then post the following Sunday and do back-to-back Sundays, just so I can keep on schedule. And that will also not be a sewing video, just so you know. It may or may not have to do with that lettering that I have down there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I release a new video every other Sunday, and sometimes a bonus in between. And until next time, I hope you have a good day. Bye!